Hey everyone, welcome to SEO Collective. Today we have Brie, and thanks for tuning in. Hey Brie.
Hi Saijo, hi everyone, how are you going?
So for this session, we won't be having Nick. It'll just be me and Brie. And for today's session, Brie will be talking about how he got a private equity firm to give him $1 million to buy a website. So that is a very, very interesting topic. And if you have any questions during this session, feel free to ask them straight away, and we'll get Brie to answer those questions as we kind of go along. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we'll start off with the SEO news today, and then after that, Brie will be going through his session. So as you can see, I'm kind of struggling a bit with our Nick here because we need to kind of jump between windows.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the first things that I want to talk about today is Google is launching attraction tickets globally. So basically, like they used to use providers like TripAdvisor, Trip.com, and stuff like that. So when you search for example, the One World Observatory, you will get like an option to buy tickets from various providers. Now, what Google is doing is they're kind of scraping the website, trying to figure out if they have like ticket sales from the website itself, and they'll kind of give you that particular info on the SERP panel. So this is kind of new, and I'm guessing providers like Trip.com will not be very happy with something like this, but this is the direction that Google is going in. So they're trying to satisfy all the intent on Google itself. So is this something that you've noticed, Brie? Have you noticed this thing come up?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. So I've seen it around a bit. So it's obviously Google's just trying to maximize everything whilst they can, I suppose.
Yeah. So again, so the second bit of news that we have today is Instagram is working on an option to allow people to edit location information on profiles. So you can add things like your phone number, like opening hours, and things like that. So it's kind of we're kind of seeing a lot of different providers kind of moving in this space. Like Apple is kind of bringing their own location information, kind of like Google My Business. Everybody's kind of having their own version of that now. So small to medium businesses, this will be kind of like the next frontier, like where all these digital sites will be kind of looking at it. One of the big news from Australia recently was Square is planning to acquire Afterpay, and for a total sum of 29 billion US dollars. And I think that's the largest acquisition in the Australian market. So did you hear about that? Just 2
No,
days
I
ago,
didn't.
I think. Yeah. So just 2 days ago. And so Square, it's Jack Dorsey from Twitter. I think he owns the company.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, Square. So they're kind of, buying Afterpay, which is the biggest buy now, pay later platform in Australia. 29
Yeah, I mean,
billion. So it's
I
crazy.
know that Afterpay is also in other countries. Did it start in Australia or did it start in the US, or do you know
No,
that?
Australia.
Wow.
It's
Okay,
from
so
Sydney.
it is
Yeah,
overseas as well. Yeah.
it is Sydney.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they have expanded to other markets, but
Hmm.
it was started in Sydney.
Okay, right. Well, that's
Yeah.
amazing because I have seen it in the US as well. So,
Yeah.
and just a pro tip out there for
Mhm.
SEOs: if you put your keyword plus Afterpay after it, it ranks really, really well. It's like no competition, high value.
Oh, yeah. So I think it was Peter, who kind of mentioned this in one of
Oh,
the,
okay.
like, it was years ago, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So he was working for this beauty brand at the time, and he
Yep.
used to see people were searching for I don't know, Gucci perfume Afterpay and stuff like that. So
Yep.
and you can see it in search suggestions, like when you're trying something, like these days, like everything has like, Afterpay keyword. So like it's probably like within the top 10 suggestion, there will be like an Afterpay keyword, especially for money keywords. So yeah, it's crazy how that
Cool.
brand has grown.
I know, yeah, and I mean, because I was doing that about 4 or 5 years ago, and that was when it started, and it's still growing now. So it's definitely a good trick, though.
Yeah. So I think we're like people are starting to come in. So just a quick reminder to everyone again, like today's session, like if you have questions, just ask away and we'll kind of stop and kind of answer those questions. So we're trying a new format. So So, I was talking to Brie about this earlier before the session started. There was this website in Norway, like, who were doing like cloaked content and they were ranking really, really well, like in Google. So around 262,000 organic keywords, and that is in a span of like a couple of months. And I'm sorry, it was 565,000 organic keywords with a traffic estimate of 262,000 in Ahrefs. So it's crazy how something like this still works this well. And granted, it doesn't work for too long because once Google caught wind of it, it was de-indexed, but still it's crazy to see something like this. So from what I understood, the website was showing scraped content from other sites, and it was cloaking it. So anybody who tries to go to the website directly will see an image. That's it. And if you're using like Googlebot, then you kind of get served this like content page. So this is something that Google has said doesn't really work, but in a real world scenario, it was just shown that it works really, really well. So it's crazy that something like this is still working. What are your thoughts on this, Lee? I'm pretty sure you have some interesting thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, like we think Google is infallible, but at the end of the day, it's very, very not. And like, there's a lot of hacks and things that still work, and it's just the way it is, and it will continue to be that way. And unfortunately, some people will get punished, while others will just get, you know, put to the top for no good reason. And it's a massive algorithm, and there's a lot of cracks in it. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So
one thing that I kind of like to say in that is like I don't think it works that well in like English speaking countries. So
no.
like especially like if you're trying to rank in
Oh yeah,
Google.com, it will be really hard with something like this. But like internationally in non-English speaking countries, I think it still works. And I think it kind of comes down to like the algorithms or like the AI that Google is kind of using is mostly based on English. So like it's all trained on English language, I would imagine, or like mostly trained on English language. So that's where it can pick up these things and kind of work through it, I guess. And in the rest of the market, it's still struggling with something like this. Your thoughts?
yeah, 100%. Like, basically, I've been like the word has kind of been thrown around that Google in other languages is like 5 years behind. So whatever worked 5 years ago works today, in other languages. So I've heard that as well. And also backlink building can be a lot less, much more relaxed in other languages because they can't really control spam as much as well. So that's another factor too. So yeah, if you want to build some sites, build them in the other languages and probably do a lot better than in English. That's for sure. It's a lot less competitive too. So
Yeah. Interesting. Did you see that Twitter started showing like product feeds in their profiles? So it's only in the US for now.
okay. I'm
So
not
like,
actually on Twitter, so yeah.
oh man, SEO is on Twitter.
I've managed to be very successful without Twitter, so it's okay.
I was
But
just
no,
joking around.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand this.
Yeah.
That's where the news is. But yeah, so product feeds within the news
Yeah,
feeds,
so
basically.
Twitter has like a business profile thing. So like using that, you can start showing product feeds underneath your profile.
Yep.
So again, it's a pilot that they're running in the US, and I'm pretty sure like with all platforms, like everybody's kind of getting into this commerce bit. So like Instagram, TikTok, like everybody has that product kind of fit. And even if you look at Google as well, like they announced shopping graph recently. And if you look at the shopping tab and even within regular SERPs as well, like they're surfacing all sort of like rich results for shopping these days. So yeah, it's just that e-commerce has had this huge boost with COVID and everybody is trying to kind of, get in on that action.
Yeah, I think it's great, and actually, to be honest with you, like we're looking at using PPC for Twitter for PPC as well. So we're actually moving into Twitter market for some of our clients too. So I totally get it.
Have you noticed this thing where like you try to rank a page and suddenly you might notice that it's not ranking, then you ask Google to index it using Search Console, and then it comes up for a few days, and then it kind of goes away from again. Is that something that you've kind of come across?
Not specifically, no. So what's the reasoning behind that? What do you think?
So like Gary from Google was saying, like that
Yeah.
usually happens when the quality threshold for that particular page is just at the edge. So like it's kind of sitting
Yeah.
at the edge, it's just below quality and it gets dropped, and then you ask Google to kind of pick it up again, so they kind of just revive it and pull it up, and again after a while it kind of finds that because other results are coming up which could be
Yeah.
like about this, so they kind of drop it again. So
you're
Yeah.
you're talking about user engagement metrics, aren't you? So you're basically saying Google's tracking up the top, so to see how people the search query interacts with it, and then
Not really. It's to do more with at least from what Google has said, it's more to do with the quality of the page in question, right? So for example, like you're trying to rank for like, I don't know, say yellow socks or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So say there are 100 results. So Google will pick all the results that they can find and pick out the top 100. So say like your page, if Google thinks it's not the greatest quality, or like if it's just sitting at the edge, like after a while, Google might drop that. It might have other results that it wants to show. So it will drop yours from the index completely.
Yep.
Not just within the top 100, but from the index. And then when you kind of go into Search Console, you might see that page is not indexed.
Okay.
And then you submit it, ask Google to kind of crawl the page again. At that point, they pick it up and show it again. But again, after like X number of days, it might still see that it's not the greatest page. So, and as you can imagine, like more results are coming up as well. So say out of the top 100 that they pick, if they think like yours is not worthy of that, they kind of drop it again. So that's my understanding of it. But like that said, last year, Google had at least 2 or 3 like issues where they were just dropping pages randomly. So they called it the indexing bug. So those kind of things can happen as well. But like in this specific case, he was talking about pages that kind of keep dropping out, in and out kind of thing. So
yeah, I'm unaware of that. I'm assuming it affects like a lot of larger kind of e-commerce sites or kind of dynamically generated content sites. I think it probably be more the problem there.
Yeah, I think it probably is more aligned towards like content-driven pages than it could be like e-commerce as well. So content quality can kind of come in any shape and form. So yeah, that was an interesting bit of information there. Have you had any run-in with Google Duplex? So this is the one where like they automatically call like restaurants to kind of make reservations and stuff like that.
Oh wow, no, that's cool. Was that good or bad? Duplex.
Good for the user, I think, but from a I think this was announced 2 or maybe 3 years ago. So they will automatically start calling businesses. Like say like you use your assistant and like you can say, okay, Google, find me a restaurant, and a Spanish restaurant or something, and make a reservation for me. And they will call out businesses and try to reserve a booking for you. And like it was surprisingly good. Like if you can go watch the video, it doesn't sound like AI talking to you. They do all this when they showed the clip, they were talking about like how a human would speak. It will do things like it'll do all those bits. And like
Mm.
when you kind of hear that on the phone, like there's no way that you would pick up that's an AI. It will say, hey, I'm
Wow.
trying, like it's kind of like an assistant. It will basically say,
Wow.
hey, I'm trying to make a booking for XYZ, like for Brie.
Yep. Yep.
And I was wondering if you have availability at 5.
Wow.
So like, if they say not at 5, but maybe 6, and then they'll go like, what about like Tuesday 5? So
Wow.
it was really, really good. Like, you wouldn't, yeah.
Wow.
And it's kind of launched in a few countries now. So like, and the latest thing with that was they're kind of doing like e-commerce checkout as well using this technology now.
Mm.
So
Okay.
if you have signed up for Google Merchant Center, like, you would, and like if you have Search Console, then they will kind of notify you when your site is like, eligible to try it. Again, I think it's
Mm.
US only. So
Yeah.
this particular feature, not Duplex. Duplex has rolled out to a few countries now. And
Okay.
one example that they gave was you can search for hot topic and plus t-shirt. If you search for that term on Android powered, like Android devices,
Mm.
then you can actually kind of use that feature right now, I guess.
Cool.
And I think this the next one is the last bit of news that we have for today. So fact checking like structured data, Google has said that like you should limit it to 1 fact per page. So previously, I think you could do multiple facts per page. And as long as you kind of provide that structured data on the page, Google should be able to pick it up and show that result, like, or show that feature within like, search results. So now they're kind of asking people to stick to just 1 fact per page.
Mm.
So that is something new there. And that's, I think, all the time that we have for news today. So for now, I'll leave it up to Brie. So Brie, take it away, mate.
Thanks, Saijo. I may as well just give a bit of introduction to myself. My name is Brie Moreau. I run an agency called White Light Digital Marketing. Bit of my background in SEO. I started SEO 14 years ago. And one of my friends was running an affiliate site and was making millions and millions of dollars back in 2007. And he started showing me some stuff that he was doing. Then I started doing that stuff and started making lots of money, and it was actually working really well back before being a digital nomad was cool, and that was even a term. And then and then 2012 hit, and I got decimated, and so I ended up going agency side and started working for some big agencies. Ended up working for Dentsu Aegis Network, Columbus as well. So, and I hated corporate life. I hated corporate SEO. I loved the clients, but I just hated the how I kind of like going up to work and the whole politics of it all. So I quit my job about 6 years ago and moved to Bali.
Mhm.
And started freelancing to begin with. And within about 6 months, I had way too many clients to deal with. And then after that, I hired an operations manager as my first hire. And within 8 months, we had 10 employees. And then we've been growing ever since. So basically, we're based out of Bali. We were working with a lot of US-based e-commerce companies. And we just started growing really quickly. At the moment, the team is about 20 employees. And in saying that, I also put on a conference called DMSS, Digital Marketing Skillshare, and that's based in Bali. And the last one we did it for 3 years. The last one we had, the headliner was NASA. So we had NASA come down for it. We had Gary Ilias from Google, Brittany Muller from Moz, Tim Solo from Ahrefs, like pretty much all the big names in SEO. Like we've had a lot of them. It's a very, very cool conference that we're running. So got to meet a lot of really smart people. And so for myself at the moment, basically run an agency which focuses on SEO, Facebook ads and Google ads. And I also do high-level consulting, consulted companies like BMW, Coke, Pepsi, L'Oreal, and all these kinds of things.
So how was it like, having like, people from Google and like, people from the Black Hat world in the same room?
Yes, I told you that story. Yes,
Yeah.
so basically, I think the really good thing about my conference is I was able to attract a lot of white hats and a lot of black hats, and we had Charles Float, who's probably the most notorious black hat out there. And we had Gary Ilias there, and Charles have had a few run-ins in the past before online, but never met in person. And basically, Charles and Gary started having a conversation, and Charles is asking Gary all these like really, really interesting questions, quite tough questions, and Gary was pretty open with everything that he was saying, and they were just, and then all the SEOs just started to form around Charles and Gary. It was like, holy shit, this is quite interesting because Gary, like Charles had all these sites de-indexed, he'd had accounts blocked, all this stuff happened to him. He's like, fucking Google this and that, and then they're just having this great conversation. Then I was like, hey guys, do you want to do this conversation next year? As like a bit of like an Ask Me Anything. You guys can just go into a room. And Gary was like, yeah, sure. I'm happy to share more information. Probably should be saying this out live in public, but I'm happy to share more information, provided that everyone puts their phone in a box before coming into the room and nothing is recorded. I'm happy to sit in a room and answer any questions that you have about Black Hat and stuff, and sit next to Charles and do this. And we're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. But COVID stuffed that up.
So I'm guessing you like, yeah, if it can't be recorded, then there's no way it's going to happen online, right?
Yeah, it's not going to happen online, that's for sure. No, just everyone turn off their Zooms and everything. Yeah, so yeah. No, but the thing is, like, so yeah, unfortunately, that won't happen at this point in time. Hopefully, we can run DMSS in sometime in the future, and we can get that happening again. But yeah, so for me, like a lot of the Melbourne SEO community probably is based around corporate and that level of SEO. So because I moved away from Melbourne and moved to Bali and hang out in Chiang Mai and in Thailand and digital nomads, I got to meet a lot of the affiliate Black Hat SEOs and a lot of guys making a lot more money than your corporate salaries, I can tell you right now. And yeah, like a lot of kind of dodgy tactics and stuff, but they do kind of work, and they do make a lot of money. Like some of them don't, kind of full of shit, but there's definitely some guys out there making a lot of money as well. So I've kind of met both sides of the industry right now, and a lot of people that run their own content, websites and kind of like content media, kind of like companies, and they basically buy and sell assets and buy assets, build them up, and then resell them for a much higher price. And so that's the scene over basically in Bali and Thailand. It's very much based on the kind of like get rich quick, I suppose, for lack of a better term. In saying that, it is a pretty fast way to make money, and it's quite a lot of my friends have had 7-figure exits in doing this process. So it's been interesting to watch, like, just having some little nerdy, like, 30-year-old SEO guys sell businesses for 7 figures, and then normally just buy more assets and just start reinvesting and doing the same process again and again and again. So yeah, so for me, what happened was I was involved with this community, and obviously because I'm running this conference, I have access to a lot of different people, and I started traveling. I used to travel around the world, speaking conferences all around the world, and I spent a lot of time in America and Silicon Valley in particular. And I'd go to Silicon Valley every year, and basically there's a lot of private equity coming into the web asset space, and there's a lot of people that are coming in, because when you buy a website, I'll just take Empire Flippers. If people don't know, I'll just put some names out there. Basically, Empire Flippers is a place to buy websites from. Most people know Flipper.com. There's a lot of junk on there, but there's definitely some assets out there as well. FE International is another website that people use to buy websites on. They're the kind of main ones that in the industry. But like, think about it. If you have a venture capital fund or a private equity fund, you've got $100 million to spend. You can just buy a whole bunch of websites and just do nothing to them. And if you're buying them and you're getting 35% return on investment from 1 year, they just buy them and hold on to them for 3 years, and they've made their money back, and they can on sell them later. So private equity and a lot of just venture capital money was coming into the space. And specifically, a lot of venture capital money was coming more into buying Amazon FBA businesses. There was a lot of $100 million funds out there, and they're just coming in and buying anything and everything. So in the past, like 2 or 3 years, the multiples for buying web assets has gone up significantly, because there's all this money, this top end town money just coming into the area. And so what happened was these companies were interested in buying assets and like, hey, I want to get into buying website assets, but they didn't have anyone to run those assets. They didn't know the right people.
Right.
So I happen to be networking very well in the US, and so I get to meet a lot of these guys. And they were just like, hey, we want to buy a website, but we need someone to run it. And so there's in the past like 3 years, there's been a term called operators coming into the space. And I just kind of happened to be part of probably like the second generation of operators that kind of came in. There's a couple to begin with. And then I happened to be part of the second generation of people that we just kind of call operators, I suppose, for lack of a better term. And the way that it works, it depends on the structure of the deal. But basically, I'll take my situation as an example. So the website that we were going to buy was $1 million. So it's quite an easy number to work with. And there was about $400,000 of net profit every year. It was making 40% return on investment. It's absolutely wild. You know, like if you're coming from investing in normal kind of businesses and you're getting like 8% return on investment, getting 40% return on investment is like absolutely wild. Most of these guys are happy with 20% return on investment. So that's pretty much like the benchmark. So if you can put a deal in front of them and say, hey, if you give me $1 million, I will, I'll explain to you how it works. Basically, if the venture capital or any kind of private equity puts $1 million into a website, when you sell the website at a later date, they get the original capital back, the original $1 million back, and then you split the profits 50-50. That's the way it works. So in the plan that what we were doing, we were going to buy a website for $1 million, sell it for $3 million. They get the original $1 million back, and then we split the profits 50-50 and get $1 million each. That was pretty much way that it was going to work. So, and what happens is when you go and on top of that, they get income as well. So they're happy with 20% return on investment. So you sit there and say, I'm going to give you 20% return on investment. So, you put $1 million in, there's $400,000 net profit at the moment. We give you $200,000 a year. We'll take the rest as operating fees, and also it's like some profit in there as well. And we'll give you 20% return on investment. And when that day comes in the future, we'll give you that $1 million back. What's the deal with PE guys if the website gets danced or penalized? So normally that's a good question. That's a good question. So normally the way it works is there's quite a few. Basically, they want you to have skin in the game. And the normal kind of skin, depending on the size of the deal, is normally like 5 or 10%. It can be up to 20% for some deals. So if they're putting in $1 million, they expect you to put in $50,000 of your own money. So that way they know that you're not negligent. So there's only about, from what I know, probably about 6 or 7 operators in the world that I know that were kind of dealing with these kinds of people. And it's all based on reputation. So you have to be really upfront with what could possibly happen, and obviously not take money from people that that would lose that money, and it would be a problem as well. So that's pretty much what happens. Like, if it goes down, it goes down. And so if you have any more questions, guys, keep them coming, and I'll kind of answer them on the go. But I'll keep my story kind of going.
Typically with some kind of deals like this, right? Like, when you buy a website, like what's kind of like the leeway to kind of flipping it again? Like, how many years do you think that?
Yeah, so it really depends on what you're doing. So some guys run them as like total funds. So they'll have like a fund of like $5 million for websites, and they'll have a portfolio of 20 sites in there, and they have a content team, a backlink team. They have all these different teams, and they obviously see which part of similar to a share portfolio, see which part of their portfolio is performing well and sell on that. That's how some of these guys work in this space. And then they obviously reinvest the capital and grow, get bigger and bigger sites. For the deal that we were doing, we're very clear on basically a 3-year time frame to pretty much double the revenue and increase the valuation that way. The other really interesting thing, so it really depends on what the outcome of the investor is, and also what the operator's outcome as well. So I have had plenty of people want to give me money, and it's just it doesn't meet my goals. It has to meet my goals, and it has to be, it has to be a situation where it's like, cool, there's a nice chunk of money. There's no pressure if it fails or not. And it's going to, there's different kinds of investors. In saying that, what normally the goal is like, if you're going, so this is all relative content to about 1.5 years ago. I haven't been in the market since COVID. So the private equity market's probably changed a bit since then. So I can't speak for this past time. But normally what would happen is, if it's like under $1 million as a valuation for the actual website asset, then the multiple is about 4x. Once you get over 3 million, it goes to 5 or 6x, and once you get over like 5 or 6 or 7 million, it goes to about 7x. So a lot of the play here is to take a $1 million asset and turn it into a $3 million asset, because you get the increase in obviously growth, but then you get the increase in multiple, and that's when you really start making money. So that's normally what people are trying to do. They're trying to move it from a 1 million to a 3 million, or from a 3 million to a 5 or 6 million, because then you get the increase in multiples, and that's where the real money comes in.
And like, what sort of like sites do you typically see in this space? Is it like content driven, or is it like, tools, or like?
Yeah, so it's everything. Yeah, so it's everything. So obviously, the popular ones. I mean, you've got software companies out there that are running. The software companies. There's content sites. There's Amazon review sites. There's all kinds of sites out there, and everyone has their specialty and what they specialize in. I would say the majority of them sold on Empire Flippers are probably Amazon review sites or content sites, and that's a very safe bet. And I would say. Obviously, people that want to get into investing, it's obvious. I don't think anyone's missed the boat yet, but obviously the multiples have went up quite a lot in the last couple of years. People have gotten onto it, but yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd kind of avoid sites that have like one or two pages that they're ranking for, and that's all that they're going for. So it really depends on what's going on. And the kind of good and bad thing with the industry is, the bad thing, realistic, is people are not educated investors. They don't know that an algorithm can just totally decimate everything overnight. They haven't been around long enough. So it's really, really, really to find the site that we almost acquired, it took us about 3 or 4 months of not full time, but scanning everything and making sure it's all good to find that one deal. And I would expect it would take probably 3 to 6 months to find a really, really good deal. If you're talking about a serious deal over $500,000 upwards of that, you'd want to spend at least 3 to 6 months really understanding the market and seeing what's available. What we see that works quite well is data-driven content, because it's scalable. Because if you're competing in a content game, there's always going to be someone out there that's going to punch out a whole bunch of words and a whole bunch of backlinks. So obviously, data-driven content is what we go for, and I've acquired a few data-driven sites myself. So that's where I'd be focusing on. But or a SaaS product that doesn't have too many competitors.
Yeah. And what are typically some of the red flags that you kind of look at, when you kind of go into acquire these kind of sites?
So the red flags, there's a lot of them. Where do I start? So to be honest with you, most of these guys are cowboys. If you're buying anything less than like 2 or 3 million, it's pretty poorly structured. And it's pretty poorly structured. They normally have a Filipino operations team, so it's poor quality work with poor quality content. A lot of the main red flag that I would say is a lot of the guys. I shouldn't say this publicly, but on some,
I thought that was the whole point of this.
Some websites that sell other websites, what people would do is they'll buy an age domain and fill it out with content. And basically do a 301 redirect onto that domain and just build out a whole bunch of backlinks and just put a whole bunch of content on there, and it'll rank really quickly. But they're kind of like quick fixes, and they're not really. I don't think they're going to go anywhere specifically. But that's a very common way to do it anyway. Basically, to buy an age domain or to get a 301 redirect, and it works. But the underlying asset is built on kind of like faulty foundations, for lack of a better term. That's probably the biggest one that we see a lot of.
But do kind of people still I'm guessing the people who come in to buy these are not like amateurs, right? So
no,
those
they
kind
are.
of things, really.
Yes, there's professionals out there as well, but this is what I'm saying. This is why people like myself that are kind of in the industry, people know me. They know, there's a lot of guys that I know that have a lot of money and they want to get into the industry. So, and they know that, because I've been around them. So they don't have the know-how to do it. So they're just like, a lot of them are really quite amateur or not at all. They're not senior SEOs in any sense, because most people are like trying to get an extra income and things like that. So they haven't come from, working 5 years in an agency and they want to branch out. Right. They're basically like, oh, I hear that there's money in websites. How do I make money?
As long as the website is ranking at the point, at the time that they're kind of looking at it, they're kind of happy with it.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of transactions. Like I wouldn't touch 97% of the transactions that are going on right now. Like it's just not safe, But that's the reality of the situation, And that's why people like myself are really valuable, because we can come in and kind of assess the situation. And then just also on the other side of the coin, I will come into Fitzgerald's question in a second. We also work with private equity companies that basically that will put a whole bunch of money into, and we've seen this more and more now. So another good example, give me a second, I'll think of it off the top of my head. Basically, we have private equity companies that come to us and sit there and say, we want to put $50,000 into a website to begin with and see what happens. And then from there, we're going to increase it from there. So we've had companies do that with us, and they'll go out and we'll basically create content for them and create backlinks for them. And then they start ranking, and then they keep growing from there. So they're also building from scratch too. So they're not. So there's different types of like ways of building an asset in this space. So they're doing that as well. So I kind of got off topic there, but
So
yeah,
this was a question.
Can you expand more on data-driven content websites and examples of big websites that do this out there? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but basically anything with a data feed in it, is a content-driven site. So if you can find a data feed from whether it's Bitcoin pricing or something like that as an example, that would be a content-driven site. So you want to kind of find sites that you can plug a data feed into. And now that you're kind of aware of content-driven sites, when you see them, you're going to be more aware. I don't want to give too much away in that because it's definitely some kind of green space that I move in.
You're talking about data-driven content, right? Not
just
content-driven.
Data-driven. So basically, if now that you go into websites, you're going to see there's data-driven content sites, whether it's a Bitcoin price or some kind of fashion blog, or there's different
code stats, for example.
Stats as examples. You're going to start seeing it more and more and more. Now that I've said it, you're going to be, oh, that's a content-driven site, or a data-driven site, and they're obviously getting the data from somewhere else and pushing in there. So that there's like, like the phone number, reverse lookup phone numbers. When someone, who is this phone number? That's a data-driven site. There's a lot of them out there. It's like, and that's kind of where you want to be, because it's just content that's just constantly being generated, and no one's going to compete with that. You can't write content like that. But I mean, what I would say is, like, who does SEO really well and who does content really well is finder.com.au. Sorry, they do content, and they're really good at SEO. So if you look at what they're doing and how they're monetizing, the chances are there's definitely other parts of what they're doing that you can squeeze a few bucks out of as well. So that's if you look at finder.com, you're definitely going to find, or finder.com.au, you're definitely going to find ideas about how to monetize there, because they're really good at it.
I have like a huge army of writers too. It's like, it's not like, it won't be like an easy operation to kind of mimic, because they have like writers, and not just writers, they have like expert writers as well. So
yeah, and you can't mimic them off as a whole thing, but there's definitely things that you can see what they're doing and kind of go,
you can pick out things and themes that they kind of, definitely.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly explain how I got to the asset and how that process happened. So basically, so I ended up getting approached by it's called a family office. It was a guy who runs a family office. His family office is smaller than private equity in a venture capital fund. It's like it's basically a really wealthy family and someone that manages the assets in that family. So I was approached by this man, and he said, "Hey, we want to buy assets. We want to buy a website asset, and how would we structure a deal around that? Like, we're interested in the space." This is in Silicon Valley as well, so they definitely knew the space quite well. He was actually a lawyer, lawyer for like kind of startup-y kind of stuff. And basically, so I said, "Yeah, cool. This is basically, we'll give you 20%. We'll give you 50% of the profit after the process. This is what the deal would look like. If we spent, $1 million, this is what you expect the return to be." And then so I went to him and I said, "Hey, this is how it'll work. If you want to do this deal with us, this is the process that we use, and this is what you expect." And I said, "Oh, how much do you want to spend?" And he basically said, we'll give you between $1 and $3 million for now." And I just went, "Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. That sounds good." And I was just like thinking, fuck. This is amazing. I can't believe this guy just said, didn't even blink. And that was just for now. Like, he would have definitely given us more money as well, moving on. And so the process was, Saijo, if you want to, I'm just going to put it onto my screen and you can share the screen. Just give me a second. You can do it now if you want. So if you want to share the screen.
Yeah, so Brie was showing this to me earlier, and like, this is a site that I use a lot of the time. So
yeah, this is called Listen or Repeat. So this is the site that we found. It took us about 3 months to find the site. And this one was just a goose that laid the golden eggs. Basically, it was making $400,000 in net profit after operations. Obviously, it's quite easy. Oh yeah, just coming back to your question, Saijo, it's really easy, because I've listed a few assets for sale as well on these websites. It's really easy to fudge the numbers, like really easy, like scarily easy. So you have to really go over the financials really well and really ask hard
I do
questions.
understand that, like, people fudge the numbers, that's fine. But then once you kind of start looking at the next stage, so you will get access to their analytics and all that. And
Yep.
even then, like I understand you can send in fake traffic and build it all up, but you can pick up those things, right?
Yeah, the fake traffic wouldn't really happen on Empire Flippers or FE International because they're pretty across that. So if you're buying from Empire Flippers or FE International, you'll definitely it'll be verified traffic and stuff. But I suppose the question is like, we really need to get into the financial data because so the way it works is because I've sold assets before as well, and you can do it's called seller's discretionary earnings. So my salary, if I sell my agency or one of my assets, my salary that's involved with that with the pricing of the sale isn't included in the deal. That's extra. It's called seller's discretionary earnings. So you've got to be careful about how much the owner's putting in as SDE or seller's discretionary earnings, because they could just sit there and kind of hide a lot of figures that way, basically, and just not really. Because as I said to you, a lot of these guys are cowboys. They don't really have good financial systems, so it's really hard to get good numbers from them. Actually, the funny thing is, when we listed one of our assets for sale on Empire Flippers, they basically asked our bookkeeper if they wanted a job because they did such a good job. It's quite funny. I was just like, no, don't poach my bookkeeper. Thank you very much. But yeah, so just to bring it back to the website. So this site was valued at $1 million. It was on for sale for $1 million, and it was $400,000 net profit. Probably it's to say 350,000, like if it was, once all the numbers were really, really clean. And basically all it does is it strips YouTube ads out. So you can just play a playlist, and it just won't play any ads in it. So how do you use it? So did you play one song, or do you play multiple?
Yeah, like I usually have like a song that I kind of listen to over and over again, like a crazy person. So
Okay.
so I usually like just like I don't use Spotify all that much. So like for me,
Yeah.
I open it up on YouTube. It's on a different tab. It sits there, eats my Chrome memory, and keeps me happy. So.
Cool. Good answer. Yeah. So obviously this site is monetized by ads, and I can see that already since when I went to purchase it, they've obviously put this probably is Mediavine. I'm not sure what this one here is. Basically, that's a new one. So they've obviously monetized it better than it was monetized before, because it wasn't monetized as well before. So they've obviously increased the revenue quite a lot. So our process with this, I have a very good CRO expert that I work with, who's a partner of mine, and we were going to come in. It was less about doing SEO because most of the keywords they're ranking for already. It was more about doing conversion rate optimization on the website, and that was the plan that we had. So basically, come in, optimize it a lot more, optimize the ad play and this kind of stuff, and that's how we're going to make more money with it.
So, I've got another quick question.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Like, I'm guessing like one of the things is like just increase the number of ad slots that you have on there, right?
Yep.
But is that like could that be like a detrimental thing to do as well, because like people would kind of be ticked off with it?
Okay,
and,
so is that a question from you, or that's a question from someone else? I can't see the screen.
No, just me.
Okay, so I'll answer that in a different way. So the first thing, and so that you kind of can riff into that. Basically, a process that we looked into doing. A lot of websites are not optimized fully for ads. So a process is a little hack for people out there that are interested in kind of getting into this space. If you use like Scrapebox or some kind of scraping tool, and you find AdSense code in a website, you can find opportunities out there, and because if you use Mediavine or AdThrive, both of those have a higher you need to have a higher traffic rate of at least high RPMs, at least 100,000 per month. Then you can basically take a website that's on AdSense, just put it onto a new ad network, and basically like triple X, 3X your revenue. So that's something that I would recommend for people to do if they're interested in kind of getting out there. They've got a bit of a team that they can scrape stuff. Then you can look at basically getting AdSense websites and figuring out how to increase the revenue. Because if you can find a website that's got AdSense on it, and it's only got one little AdSense thing, it's not responsive and all this kind of stuff, and you can just change the code a little bit or do some stuff to make it display better, then basically you're gonna do really well. And the second thing in that process too, what a lot of guys do, they end up owning a whole network of sites in a specific niche. So they might have a whole bunch of coffee sites, and they have affiliate deals specifically with the coffee provider already. And instead of having a banner ad up there like the Amart, I've got the Amart furniture one up there, they might have a specific affiliate deal with a coffee site for 15% of revenue or something like that. So a lot of times when you build out like it's called a roll up. in terms, basically, you just buy a whole bunch of sites in the same niche, and you basically can apply the same things to that specific site, whether it's operations or affiliate deals. So, but to answer your question, so to go on from that, like if you can find an opportunity like that where you've got a site with AdSense that's poorly performing, if you can just change the advertising platform, then you're going to make instant ROI. And a lot of the guys that do that process as well, and it works quite well for them. But to answer your question, is putting more ads going to piss people off? Yes, but it's probably going to make you more money too. Like the more irritating it is, unfortunately, it makes more money. Probably from an SEO perspective, it's not going to work very well as well, depending on the pages. But overall, you've probably seen a lot of Mediavine sites, and they've got these little irritating videos and stuff, but they perform so much better than the straight AdSense site. Can I bring it back to me now? Does anyone have any questions on that, or I can be?
No, I think we can.
Okay.
Yep.
You want to take it off? Cool.
Yep.
So we started looking to acquire sites in our own way, like just with our outreach team as well. So we looked into that process too. And what some of the guys in the industry that were doing this kind of stuff, what they were doing was they were buying high DA sites with low traffic. So they were going through and scraping them and figuring out which had high DA and low traffic. And then basically just buying the blogs outright. It might be a blog on, I don't know, stamp collecting as an example. And they're basically going out and scraping the web and then finding these kind of websites and buying them for like $2,000 or whatever it was to say, hey, I'm a stamp collector as well. What do you know? I want to build the best stamp collecting blog in the world, and then from that, obviously, throw content on it and turn it into a crypto site. It's probably not the best example, but you know what I mean. So basically, and that works really well. And a lot of guys, so a lot of the same thing with Empire Flippers too, people would be doing that too. They basically go out and buy an age domain and just kind of refurbish it. And because it has that high DA, you don't have to buy a lot of backlinks for it. A lot of guys are doing that process too. And the other thing that we started going to this process, but we was like going into this to this area here and trying to buy sites like $2,000 or $3,000 and negotiating it. But at the end of the day, like we're in the process of buying $1 million website. So we're not going to stuff around with this process. I'm reading that Fisher has a question, but I'll just quickly go on and saying the other process as well that I know other guys that were successful with, they were going out and finding WordPress blogs that were not updated. Because if it hasn't been updated for 1 or 2 years, then you can just come in and go, hey, what's going on with your website? And so a lot of guys were going out and acquiring sites like that too. So,
all right. So I'll just bring up the question.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned before that having an expired domain isn't a great strategy. What if your domain is a legit business that went under and wasn't dropped? Yes, that's perfect. So you want to make sure it's undropped, obviously. And you can redirect it to a new site. But I would actually just keep it on the same domain. I wouldn't do a 301 redirect. I would just keep it on that same domain if you can. Anything undropped is really, really good and valuable. I'm not a PBN expert, and I'm not an expert in that stuff, so don't quote me on all this stuff. But that's my experience. I would just say that undropped domain is very valuable, and you can use it for whatever purposes you want.
So another thing that I want to kind of touch on this is like about a year ago, I think I came across this case study where somebody used a French politician, I think it was, like a campaign site. Yeah. So it had the name of the politician 2019.fr or something. And they started putting up product comparisons on that. And it was ranking really well for a month or so. And then it kind of tanked. So Google kind of figured out because I'm guessing all newspapers in that particular country will be kind of covering the site because it was the politician who was running at that time. So everybody will kind of link to it. And then after the campaign was over and if he won or he didn't win, whatever it is, the domain was dropped and somebody picked it up and started running this affiliate thing on that. And it did really well for 2 months or so. But then Google automatically picked it up and kind of dropped it. So is that something that you see these days?
To be honest with you,
especially if the context is different, I think that's the thing. So if that site is about X and then you kind of completely switch it over to something else, then it doesn't really work as well as it used to.
That's 100% right. It needs to be contextually relevant, and you need to keep the old original pages on there that are getting the backlinks on there as well. There's a way to do it properly. It needs to be done in a specific way. You can't just delete the site, all the pages that have the backlinks on it, and then just turn into a new site. Google's not stupid. You need to keep the original content on there and just migrate content around and do some things that are And the PBN guys will be able to explain more about that process. But yeah, you're 100% right. It needs to look like it's the same site with the same owner and all that kind of stuff too. Actually, just I have to say this as well. It's just funny. We do quite a bit of grey hat stuff, just like testing. So we just kind of test some stuff out, and I was always like
just stumped. Some testing.
Oh no, we do testing. We do testing. No, we do testing. So we're ahead of the curve. We're ahead of the curve. We test some stuff out and we see if it works or not. And the funny thing is, I was always stumped for like, where do I send this traffic to, or where do I send these backlinks to, or how do I do this process? And so what I do now is I use Trump supporter websites. Because I'm sorry if anyone's a Trump supporter. Actually, I'm not sorry if anyone's a Trump supporter out there. But basically, because I'm doing testing, I can see whether there's increases or decreases with backlinks. Because I was like, oh, you know what? I can send a whole bunch of backlinks to a Trump supporter now. Who gives a fuck? Anyway, that's irrelevant, but that's it was contextually relevant, I suppose. Fitzgerald's asking another question there.
Yeah, I think there's a new question.
What if there are negative reviews about the previous company or bad customer service? Is it worth changing the domain? Yeah, I mean, it's bad business. I mean, but I mean, I wouldn't be doing it with a service-based business. I'd just be doing this as a website, content-based website, basically. I wouldn't be doing. This would be more of a content-based play than a service-based kind of situation. And I'll bring it back to what it was happening to me now. So basically, we had the deal. So we're going through the deal, and everything was going ahead. It was like about 2 months that the contracts we're in the due diligence stage of the contract, and we're all moving ahead with it. And at the 11th hour, the family office pulled out because they just made an assessment that Google, because they were bringing out RedTube and their own premium, whatever it was, not RedTube, whatever it's the premium, definitely not RedTube, whatever the premium one, whatever it was called, because they were bringing out their own premium version, then they kind of figured that it was quite dangerous to kind of sit in that niche and hold that space, because if they're stripping ads and Google's trying to get more money for revenue, they just basically, the lawyers came back and said, we don't want to be liable for this situation. So at the 11th hour, they pulled out. This was about 2 months from us kind of like putting an offer in and getting accepted and kind of going for the due diligence process with the buyer. And for those 2 months, I was running the agency as well. So I had all this other pressure from the agency, and I was just so stressed out dealing with the situation, going, oh man, what happens if the website goes to zero? Like, just, it's $1 million asset, So
yeah, a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. So basically what happened was the deal didn't go through, and I was just like, thank God, I'm so happy. I've got the agency. I'm happy with that for now. And I didn't move forward with that process. So it doesn't mean I wouldn't want to do it in the future, but I already have my own assets anyway that I can grow. So I'm not in a position where I need to get equity funding at the moment. But in saying that, there's a couple of guys out there that do this kind of stuff, and maybe if you want to share my screen quickly, I can just show some people these guys. Is it sharing now?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so Don Wells, this is Don Wells, and so he offers 12% dividend. And this is kind of the process. This is kind of where the industry is kind of headed, and this has only happened last 2 or 3 years. So he was kind of one of the first ones to do this process. And he's like, just if you want to like research more about the industry, Don Wells is probably worth checking out. The other guy that's been around for a long time is called Domain Magnate. He's based out of Chiang Mai in Thailand, and he does the same process as well. So these guys have kind of productized. So a lot of these guys were like me, similarly before, and just kind of have a lot of people wanting to throw the money at them. And they've productized this whole product out now, and they basically run like little funds. So worth checking out these guys too as well if you're interested in investing just by chance. And Empire Flippers have got their own capital. I'm good friends with the guys here at Flippers, and they asked me if I wanted to join this as well. But basically, you can just kind of chuck in like 50K between like 5 people and buy a website together as well and have an operator run it. It's actually a pretty cool model. Empire Flippers is quite progressive with what they do. So these guys, this is kind of where the industry is headed in a way. This is kind of the smaller stuff, but there's like much larger venture capital firms doing stuff on a larger scale, and they're kind of like media publishing houses. But these are kind of the smaller guys that I know in the industry that are doing this process.
Yeah, definitely come across Empire Flippers before. So yeah, it's a great site.
Maybe you can take me off screen share now, and I can go back to.
Yeah, it's done. I've got another question. So say like,
Yeah.
somebody's got a website, they only run AdSense on there, for example, like,
Yep.
just 1 or 2 slots on there. And like, say they want to sell that particular site, right?
Mm.
So what sort of like, um, a rough figure are you kind of looking at? Do you kind of
Yeah,
multiply
multiples.
the revenue that, yeah? So what sort of
Yeah.
multiples do you look at? Is it like, the amount that you make in a year, you multiply that by X? So what
Yeah.
is that X that you usually see in the
Yeah. So
market?
normally, up until 2 point, so up until 2.5, up until about a year and a half ago, up until COVID,
Mhm.
the multiple was for a smaller site like sub 100,000 was getting up to around 50x monthly revenue.
50.
X, yeah, 50x
Okay,
monthly,
wow, that's
monthly. So
yeah,
that's
that's
like,
crazy, right? I've
yeah,
usually
yeah, yeah,
seen
yeah.
like 20 to 30. That's what I've
No, no,
usually
no,
seen.
no. 20 to 30 was about 4 or 5 years ago, and then it went up to about 30 to 40 now. It was about getting to about 50x for smaller websites. Definitely
Hmm.
in the sub 20,000.
Hmm.
When you go about 20,000, but now it's going up. I haven't checked recently because I'm not actually
Yeah.
buying anything at the moment. It's way
Hmm.
overpriced. But so normally where it would start, if you're looking at an asset between like 50 and 200,000, you're probably looking to, you used to look at about 3.5x to 4x. So that's yearly. That's
Yeah,
yearly.
like, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and then the really weird thing about it is that you can get a, a 4x of yearly on a content site that's only 18 months old. And that's what's selling. And that's how,
Mhm.
if you look on Empire Flippers right now or FE International, and I'm sure on Flipper it's like 100 times worse right now, especially since COVID. If you look at Empire Flippers and FE International and look at what you're buying, that's probably like 4x multiple, but only has been around for 2 years. They haven't even made as much revenue as the site's being sold for. This is the state of the industry right now. It's really, really hot. There's so much money flooding in right now. It
Mm.
really, really is. It's just everyone wants an online business. Everyone wants to work, by the pool in Thailand and all that kind of stuff. It's massive. It's changed. It's really changing. Like it really, really is.
Well, 50x, that sounds amazing. So,
I
yeah.
know. So, and just to put it in perspective for agency owners as well, like agencies would go for about at least 3 to 4x yearly multiples.
Yep. And like
So
when you kind of look at, sorry, you were saying.
yeah. No,
Yep.
just saying that like people don't realize that their agencies are worth that much. Like if you have an agency for sale, you can get like 3 to 4x your yearly revenue minus your seller's discretionary earnings. So you take your salary out, and that's even more profit. It's actually very attractive.
So another thing that I want to ask was, when you look at the different type of websites, right? Like, you've got your like heavy content like related website, you've got your data driven websites, you've got your tools, you've got your like affiliate sites, e-commerce, SaaS, all those different types. What sort of like, sites do you see a higher multiple for?
Definitely SaaS. Definitely
So,
SaaS. SaaS was like you could easily get 7x before, and then now I'm sure it's a lot higher.
mhm,
Yeah, you could easily get 7x multiples, and because it's the monthly recurring revenue, and also it's hard to break into the market. Like in order
mhm,
to, if you hold a niche, let's say you have a SaaS product for mortgage brokers, I don't know,
mhm,
some kind
mhm,
of software that they use.
mhm,
If you own that space and it's going to be hard for someone to come in and bump you out, then easily get 7x. Like a lot of my friends have been very, very successful with SaaS. But in saying that, I don't know if have you heard of Authority Hacker? There's
yeah,
probably some
mhm,
people in the group. Yeah, Authority
mhm,
Hacker. Yeah, so Gail and Mark,
yeah,
good friends of mine. Yeah. Um, uh, so the funny thing is I remember a couple of years ago they said like if you want to make it rich and you want to make your 7-figure exits, and just to let you know, I know a lot of friends that have made 7-figure exits, so it's very, very common in this space, and like they're saying, Gail and Mark were saying basically you can try and develop a SaaS and build a product and have a startup and do all this stuff, and it'll probably fail. Like most startups fail. Whereas if you build a content website in the right niche,
mhm,
then you will be able to get a 7-figure exit quite easily. It's obviously changed. The dynamics changed quite a lot in the last like 2 or 3 years with SEO. But
mhm.
like a lot of my friends were doing that. They were just going out and putting in $10,000-$20,000 into backlinks and content, seeing how the website goes. Once it starts making money, they just keep throwing more and more money in it. And I was going to show you an example of let me just give me 2 seconds. I'll
Yeah,
find the
sure.
example. Tusk
So
mattress.
guys, if any of you have any questions, like definitely like just pop it in the comment section on YouTube and we'll get those answered.
Just give me a second. I was going to find these guys. I want to find you an example of a yes, it's tuck.com. If you want to put in tuck.com, if you put that into
do you want me to just like bring up your screen, or
let me see if I can just I haven't got Ahrefs on this Chrome browser. It's on another browser.
okay.
But if you where can I just put in the comments, or just tuck.com.
Tuck.com. Okay.
Yeah, if you have you got Ahrefs open? Can you share it? I don't know if you.
No, not on this.
No,
Sorry,
okay,
man.
okay, cool. So if people put in tuck.com into Ahrefs or SEMrush, so you guys are SEMrush. Oh, sorry. How do I say Ahrefs? Oh my god. Sorry. Sorry, Olga. If you whatever SEO tool that you like, if you put a tuck.com into whatever SEO tool you like, that was a pure private equity play, and you will see what's going on there. And that was basically private equity teaming up with someone like myself and just going, cool, just throwing a whole bunch of money, and just the provider like myself just hitting a whole bunch of content and backlinks.
Yeah.
And that's they're gonna easily 10x their investment there. So we've done this with private equity companies too, and we've easily 10x the investment they've put into this to our systems as well. So it works. And so what we're doing at the moment is we're still working with clients. We still have our client base, but we've acquired a couple of sites, and we're still stretched for resources. But basically, we're just going to do the same process we do for our clients for ourselves. And then we're going to get out of the client game.
Interesting.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
I think there's a comment.
You are living the dream. Yeah, I am. Everett, man. Like, honestly, quit your fucking job. Tell your boss you don't want to work for him anymore and move to Bali. Well, don't move to Bali now because it's COVID. Sorry for swearing. But no, that's what I did. And that's why I started my conference, DMSS, Digital Marketing Skillshare. So people would do the same thing, quit their job, and basically go out and work for themselves and actually have control over their life. And it was the best decision I ever made. I did it 6 or 7 years ago now. You don't have to have a team of 20. Trust me, it's not that fun. I mean, it's fun now because it's got better. But at the end of the day, you can there's a lot of guys out there just have, small handful of sites, and they're doing quite well. I have friends that are, making $20,000, $30,000 a month from content sites, and they don't do anything. They have like 2 or 3 people managing it. And like they're literally living the dream. And yeah, I really endorse people to do it. Limited funds, but good SEO knowledge. I would say that
start your own site and kind of grow it, and then
I mean that's it. That's what you're doing to do. I mean, honestly, like to be completely honest with you, it's all on backlinks. I would be building out an outreach team. Getting really good at outreach is where you need to be, because, and this is the process that we've seen 1,000 times. We can get a site and we just throw a whole bunch of backlinks at it, like quality backlinks at it, and it just goes up. It just goes up. So that's what I would do. I would be building a quality outreach team and investing all your money into outreach. Obviously, you have your content to begin with, but when it really comes down to it, it's about finding the right niche and outreach. And realistically, you've got 2 options. You can either go for AdSense and just go for like kind of informational content plays that you're going to have, banners on stuff, or you can go for direct affiliate sites using, Commission Junction or Commission Mosh, or whatever those kind of affiliate sites are, and you can target specific products too, because and that'd be another way to do it. Or you can just obviously go the Amazon route as well. So I'd probably move away from Amazon, because Amazon's squeezing everyone at the moment, and everyone's kind of
dropped the commissions quite a bit as well recently. So
yeah, exactly, that's the thing, and you just don't really can trust Amazon that much. So, but yeah, I mean that's what I'd be doing. I'd honestly, a backlinking outreach team is really, really valuable. That's where the money is. That's what works. Unfortunately, it's hard work, and it works though.
Any tips for people kind of getting into the outreach process?
Yeah, so a couple of things.
And favorite outreach tools as well.
Yeah, so I mean Ahrefs, I've been a fan of it for 10 years since it came out, so that's the best outreach tool there is. So with outreach, as I said to you before, Saijo, first, the other thing to say as well, Haro, so we're trying to develop more processes around help a reporter out and get more consistent with our Haro processes, because obviously those published links are worth a lot more than any backlink you'll ever get. So we're focusing more on haro at the moment. We haven't systematized everything client ready yet, but we're in the process of doing that with our clients and systematizing it so we can just sit there and just kind of hit it out with haro for our clients. That's where I'd be focusing my energy on, getting a really good haro profile and having a haro ready website. As I was saying to you, Saijo, so basically there's a new link spam update that's just come out. What we're focusing on now with our traffic, what we're focusing now with our backlinks is traffic-based link building. So, you know, we still do traditional link building with guest posts and outreach and that kind of stuff. And we do a lot of it. We have a lot of clients that we do this for. But what we're focusing on now is systematizing traffic-based outreach. Hey, Sam, how you going? He's not even an SEO. He's a mate of mine. That's hilarious. Hey, Sam. So traffic-based outreach. So basically what we're doing is we're going after like general sites, like general kind of news sites that have high traffic or any kind of site that we can use. And we basically figure out whether it's our client sites or our site, we'll basically figure out where we can do a niche edit on that site on a page that has high traffic. So we'll go through, analyze an Ahrefs, look at the traffic on the website on those pages. So we're looking for traffic, we're looking for page level traffic and page level ranking as opposed to domain ranking, because having an orphan guest post on a DA90, it's working now, and it is working because we do it, but at the end of the day, it's going to get phased out. So we're looking at traffic. So niche edits on high traffic pages. So, and the process with this too, if you're going to go for multiple clients or for multiple websites on your page, you go out and go a niche edit and say, hey, how much for a niche edit? Oh, it's $75. Or how much for 2? Oh, it's 60 for 2. Oh, how much for 3? Oh, it's 6. It's 55. And then if you're originally going to do 10 or 15 for some of our clients, we'll just negotiate them down to begin with and say, cool, we'll buy 15 from you, and we want it on these specific pages. And they don't know that it's the high traffic or the things. They just kind of go, yep, cool, no worries, because they've agreed to it. So that's the process that we use there. The other process I was telling you, Saijo, that we're going to start working on as well. Let's just say that you're doing a guest post for an Adidas company or something like that. Do keyword research and Content Explorer. Do the trick where you basically do, any page, if you put the keyword term Adidas shoes into Content Explorer, make sure it has a traffic of more than 100 and less than 5 referring domains. And we'd go through that list and find, easy places to rank that won't involve any kind of backlinking. And we'd sit there and go through and analyze it and go, cool. All right, there's, where do I buy Adidas shoes from in Nigeria? It's probably a good example. Or how do I refine my Adidas shoes? Or you just find examples of content that you can write based around the keywords that you can rank for. And then we go to the guest post blog and we sit there and say, we want to write an article on how the best place to buy Adidas shoes in Nigeria. And so we'll go, that's the content we want to write for them, and they have to negotiate because sometimes they're particular about content. But we haven't really systematized this process yet, and then get that content to rank. Because even if you get one piece of traffic or one person comes through that thing, you're at least validating that page has an existence in Google, and that's what we need to focus on. And that's where we're moving with our backlinking processes too, because this whole guest posting thing, it's been a great party and it's lasted for a while, but we don't want to get caught with our pants down,
Yep. So, do you use any other tools for this, like Bus Stream or anything like that, to kind of manage the whole thing?
So we use Ninja Outreach as the main tool. When we've tried Pitchbox, we've tried Mailshake. Not really. With Ninja Outreach is the best for us for our services. Pitchbox is too expensive. It's not that great.
Yeah.
I've
used it a while back. Like, it was like, don't get me wrong, it was good. Like, I think I was looking at Bus Stream and Pitchbox at the time, and like Pitchbox, from what I remember, was really good but more expensive. So what about Ninja Outreach do you like? Like, what's
so Ninja Outreach's difference is, you have to talk to my outreach team for that, because they're specialists in that. But basically, with Mailshake, you can only send 3 emails, whereas in Ninja Outreach, you can spend 5, and you can customize the email variables. I think a lot more in Ninja Outreach. Don't quote me on the last bit, but that's the main reason, is because we can send more than 3 emails to begin with, as far as our kind of like email campaign.
Yeah, so you're talking about the chains, right? So the follow-up kind of thing.
Yeah, so we definitely we do a proper campaign for them as well. So I don't know what else they use, because we do a lot of lead generation as well. So we do LinkedIn lead generation and email lead generation as well. And they definitely use a tool to validate the emails too. I don't know what tool that is at this point in time.
Hunter.io or something like that?
So that's, thank you. We moved from Hunter.io to Snub.io. And I think we've even moved from, I don't know if you heard of snub.io. That's a good one.
No.
That integrates
How do you spell that?
SNOV.io, snub.io.
Okay.
Then that one has more functionality than Hunter. So check snub.io out. That's definitely a good one. And we've even moved on, I think, from snub.io to another one called Perocon Leads, like Pero, like button Spanish, PERO space con leads. And that one does some stuff for us as well. And that one we can integrate an email campaign with a LinkedIn campaign. So we can send a campaign between both of them together. So we can hit them on email, and if they don't respond to email, it goes up with a follow-up on LinkedIn, or we can hit them on LinkedIn. If they don't follow up, we can hit them on email. So that's a good little tool as well. So Pericon leads, but this is more for lead generation stuff, which is different to the topic we're talking about. But my team, they've really figured all that stuff out. It's very lucky to have a team that they figured that stuff out for me. So and they're very good at what they do.
Excellent. So any other questions? If not,
no one wants to make $1 million, or no one wants to get assets, come to Silicon Valley with me and start schmoozing some dudes and tell them you're going to make all this money and like, oh yeah, man, we'll get you up here. And it's a really good industry. So you don't really want to wrap up, but it's a really good thing to get into because pretty much most of our clients are in this space. So we work a lot of investors and people like this. And the reality is like, we have to put our money where our mouth is. And we have to get results because it's different from working for a company that's like, oh, we have a Shopify website. These guys are like, we just gave $120,000 to you guys. Like, we need to make this money back. It's different to like, oh, do we have rankings now, sir? Brie, can you send me the report? It's like, where's the results? We need the results.
Yeah. Excellent. So thanks so much again, for coming in and talking to us about this. So if people have questions, how do they kind of reach you? Like, what's the best place? I'm guessing you're on Twitter, no?
No, God, no. I hate social media. Sorry. I don't have time, man. I don't have time. So my website is called White Light Digital Marketing. So you can just contact me, BRIE, or just use the, so it's www.wldm.io. So wldm.io, whitelightdigitalmarketing.io. If you want to contact me on there, just use the contact form, or just email me directly at brie@wldm.io. My name on Facebook is Brie Moreau. You can contact me there as well. If you have clients that need SEO, backlinks, Facebook ads, Google ads, all that stuff, we can definitely help. We do real outreach. Not many people can say that. So if you're interested in getting real outreach done, then we can definitely help you with that. That's where we find most of our clients too, because we can provide a service that most other people can't provide. So if anyone wants to chat more, we can. And no, I don't want your money. It's okay. I won't take your investment.
Excellent. So thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll see you guys hopefully with Nik next time, so it isn't so awkward like the initial session.
Do you do outreach for any industry? Yes. Yeah. So if it's just asking to any industry, yes, we do outreach for every industry. That's because we do legitimate outreach. We're not offering you a list. You give us a niche, you give us a problem, and we solve it. So we can do all kinds of weird stuff for you because we actually do the legitimate work. So thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. And thanks, Saijo.
No problem. So thanks, everyone.
Bye.